Welcome, everybody, to This Week in Svelte. My name is Enrico, and joining me is Paolo.
Paolo, hey, oh, ho, ho, we are in Santa mode.
Yes, welcome to This Week in Svelte. At this show, we like to talk about things that happen around the Svelte ecosystem and happenings on Discord, including the changelog, quick facts, a community showcase, followed with discussions and some Q&A. That is the agenda. And let's start with the thing you're all here for, the changelog. Take a look at this. So let's start with some substantial changes to SvelteKit. Last week, SvelteKit 2.0 was released, and this week has been an aggressive rush to send out some patches. And they have been very responsive, and people have been filing issues, and they've been closing really quickly. So let's see what kind of patches you have in store today. There were several, almost too many patches, honestly. Like if I scroll down the changelog here, there's SvelteKit 2.01 all the way to 2.06, but also many adapter changes, mostly cleanup related stuff. They switched in the main repository. The master branch has been renamed to the main branch, things like that, cleanup tasks. So noteworthy changes I will highlight is, first off, trailing slash handling in adapters in Kit. Some folks have experienced bugs related to trailing slashes appearing when they shouldn't. And that has been fixed in additions before 2.06. I think it was an early patch back in 2.01 and stuff. Let's highlight that, svelte.js/kit. There we go. Yes, so very early on. I almost can't scroll to it, but that's okay. Trust me, the trailing slashes are patched.
Yeah, I think I also experienced those bugs during test, specifically. Like we had some tests that were checking against the path name, and the path name had a / at the end. So yeah, happy that this has been fixed.
Yes, and some things to go over here. There's some type fixes for goto, and
this is something that actually I think it's worth mentioning. Not the type fix, but the fact that before SvelteKit basically removed the state from goto. So when you when you were using goto, you could include a state that was basically added to the window.location.state. And now instead you can access this state inside the page store. But before it was completely removed from goto because there was the possibility to add state with the new addition of shallow routing. But they realized that like sometimes you want to navigate and have a state associated with that navigation. So they included it back.
I see. Yeah, that's right. In SvelteKit 2, one of the breaking changes was removing state from goto. So as you mentioned, they brought it back due to the need for it when navigating. So that is noteworthy. But very recently, 2.06 yesterday was released on Friday. Today's Friday, Thursday. Actually, it's got to be Thursday somewhere. Allow dynamic env access when building, but not pre-rendering. Some folks who use Lucia or other authentication services may utilize dynamic variables, and this patch will be less aggressive in preventing you from using those variables. So during pre-rendering and during building, before SvelteKit 2.0 would totally throw an error at you saying you cannot use dynamic environment variables when pre-rendering. That is one of the breaking changes in SvelteKit 2. But instead, they patched it by saying, okay, maybe let's be a little less aggressive. Instead, when you're actually pre-rendering, yes, we'll prevent it. But when you're server rendering a build that is using in hooks.server.js, we will allow dynamic variables.
Cool.
That was the bug.
Yep.
And this is the patch. And moving on to Svelte. Nothing in Svelte 4 was patched recently, but Svelte 5 continues to be throwing in lots of rapid changes and bug fixes. Svelte 5 is still in early alpha, so you can expect things to be changing so often that not even we can keep up with it.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I think, obviously, like it's Christmas time. So I think also Svelte 5 got a bit slower during those couple of weeks. I think there were a couple of releases about Svelte 5. with some bug fix, which is always nice.
Yeah. So keep staying tuned in the Discord Svelte 5 alpha channel, because that's where you can have the most bleeding edge information with regards to Svelte 5, even before it gets shipped to the preview documentation. So as new features and new behaviors come out, they will be released here. And that is it for the changelog. Let's move on to quick facts and announcements. I've got a couple of quick facts. The first one is, did you know the CSS has selector is now evergreen? But I should put a disclaimer with that. So :has is a pseudo selector in CSS that allows you to do, some call it the parent selector, but it's also the family selector, depending on who you ask. And that means if something on the page, if something further down your CSS selector tree has a class or has an attribute or whatever valid CSS selector, then the parent or sibling, or depending on how you arrange it, can have CSS styles applied to it. And the announcement here is Firefox 121 has stable support, but notice there, the global usage is still 0%. So my advice is, great, you can start developing it, but the global usage of Firefox has to catch up. So people still need to upgrade their Firefox browsers to get this feature on their platform.
But
so
finally, because this was like, it was about time that we could actually use has. And now obviously like it's the wait game until like we can really use has in production. But
yeah,
finally, at least we have all major browser shipping has.
I have been using has as a progressive enhancement for some use cases. Like if I want to highlight a table cell, when the contents of a table cell has something, then I can make the entire table cell yellow, for example. But the progressive enhancement I'm using is, okay, I'll just highlight the text in the cell, but if the browser supports :has, then the entire cell will be highlighted. So you can have some sort of fallback in the interim once, and you know your audience better than we do. If you're supporting evergreen browser users and everyone's on the latest, maybe you have company policies that force people to be on the latest browser, then you can more assuredly use this. Otherwise, give it 3 months.
Yep.
And that is my quick fact number 1. Quick fact number 2, which is also a segue, is we're near the end of Advent of Svelte. And we have a special guest who will show us some of the latest community showcases around Advent of Svelte. Please welcome to the stage, Willow. Ghost, in parentheses.
Ghost.
Hello. I don't unfortunately have a Santa hat. I was running around the house for a few minutes trying to find one, but you don't have any.
Well, I mean, ghosts don't have to wear a hat, so don't worry.
So with that said, welcome and show us around Advent of Svelte. What's new?
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I'll really quickly cover this. For the past 22 days, we've been releasing a new challenge every day, based around Svelte, on the lead up to Christmas. As you can see, we've got quite a few. These will be there forever, so you don't have to rush or whatever, and you can pick and choose which ones you want to do. The vast majority of them are like standalone tasks. So yeah, and you can find this by going to advent.sveltesociety.dev. And yeah, we can also join the Discord and share solutions, which is where all of the solutions I'm going to show you have come from. So we're going to start with this one from day 8, where the challenge was to build like a card matching game. So we can click through some of these and try and match them like that. And then so this was submitted by Withered Flowers, and then for day 11 we've got this submitted by Jürgen. So the premise was you put in your name and then it generates this elf name, and if we show you, then you could fetch this data here and get a name from it. And then for day 15 we have a submission from Storky, one of our ambassadors. If I just rerun this, where the previous day 13, you made this snowfall component. And then on the next day, you could make this snow globe. So we could change this text, for example, to this week in Svelte, and we can play around with some of these options. And it generates this really cool like snow globe effect. And then day 16, this is a submission by Jesus for a hanger visualization. So the premise of this was we need to visualize the present storage, and so we could search for this, and we can search for presents, so we can find this guy's, and you can see that it's stored here in the warehouse. And this is a really cool submission using Svelte to visualize it with Three.js. And then day 17, we have this challenge submitted by Storky, where the premise was it in the lead up to Christmas, last minute gift shopping, you want to put in your budget, and so you can change your budget here, say it was $200, and then as you buy presents, say we bought a present for, I don't know, Stephen again, and we spent $80, it'll come up on here and you can see how much budget you've got left. And then day 18, we have the quiz, where again it was similar to some of these previous days, where we had this data endpoint here, and you can fetch it, start this quiz, and then okay, the answer to that one is this, and then so forth, and go through the quiz and then see how many you've got right at the end. And this was submitted by Mr. Clintock. And then day 19, similar, we have this fun Christmas lights submission, and you can change like some of these colors, how they animate, and they have this, which I found really fun, the sort of remote for the lights. And this was submitted by Suresh. And I want to mention that there's quite a common thing people did is like, see here where we have all these different days. You could go through and look at the other days. So we could see this day 10, for example, which has been really cool to see all the submissions come in. And then this is a submission by Willow for day 20, where you fetch this new endpoint, and it tells you some funny Christmas cracker jokes. And this one has some cool confetti whenever you press this. Don't think this has it, but we also had the challenge where you could use the web audio API to make this speak, and we shared a link to that and stuff, and that was quite fun to see some people submit some robotic voices speaking at you Christmas jokes. And then finally, for a day 21, we have this submission by Jesus for a weather app. So I've spoofed it to the North Pole. We can see it's very, very cold, and it has like some other information about rain and temperature and stuff. So yeah, you can find all of these in the Discord, either clicking this button here, for example, or svelte.dev/chat. And yeah, if share your solutions, there's a pinned message in the advent of Svelte chat. And we'd love to see them and maybe showcase them more on the site after the end of the challenge. So yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing those highlights to us. And it looks like it's wrapping up in a few days. Is that right?
Yeah. But as I said, everything will be here like forever. So
we are almost at Christmas, so it's time. It's time.
It's time. And Advent of Svelte is a great way if any of you would like to get your hands into Svelte 5 runes. So it's a great way to learn the new methods and give yourself a nice set of fun challenges to do so. Thank you again, Willow, for presenting.
Yeah, thank you.
Great stuff. And that brings us to the next segment, discussion. And it's a discussion because I don't think I have all the answers. We don't have all the answers, but we're happy to discuss things. And the thing we're going to discuss is ideal theme toggles. It was a last minute thread we had on Discord a couple of days ago. And theme toggles are interesting because toggles in themselves are somewhat of a challenge because they're not always implemented correctly on the web. And I just want to discuss my personal feelings on that. And I'm sure, Paolo, you have some too, especially when it comes to enhancing the toggle experience.
Yes.
Take a look at this. So before we get into theme toggles, let's just talk about toggles themselves. And a lot of you, I'm sure everyone tuning in today has some kind of mobile phone. And toggles on Android and iOS have a very distinct design where it can only represent on or off state. That is what a toggle is. It's like it represents the on or off state of one thing. It's not a this or that. It's not red and blue. It's not black and white. It's one thing, on or off. And knowing the content of what a toggle represents, it can help infer the design needed. So in this toggle example, I'm dispensing French fries. I showed this a few weeks ago. And the dispenser is either on or off. It is not salty or caramel or two flavors. It's not two options. It's binary. It's on or off. So when it comes to theme toggles, most people think about light mode, dark mode. And that already breaks the convention of a toggle. So what I'm trying to discuss here is, should a theme switcher be a toggle? I don't think it should. I think it should be a set of buttons. What are your thoughts, Paolo?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends, because maybe have a set of button cannot help your design. So maybe like I would not see a switch as a theme toggler. So I will definitely use, for example, a button toggle. So like a single button with different like design to showcase one or the other. So that I agree that like the toggle is not something that I would use to toggle between themes. And also, I mean, obviously this poses the question, like, are you using just two themes? Because there are people that use multiple themes. For example, I think there is our fellow ambassador Scott Spence website that use a bunch of themes. It's very cool because you can really customize like his website to your needs. So it's very cool.
Yeah, I'm bringing up an example to help illustrate the discussion a bit. So on MDN, they have a theme toggle here, and it's not perfect, obviously, when I highlight it. There goes the contrast. I don't know, but what's good about this theme toggle is when you click it, you have three options. You have your system option, you have your light mode, and your dark mode. And I think all websites showing at least two themes, light and dark, should always have the third option, which is follow your system settings. There is a CSS media query that can detect that. And most people who have their system setting, I think even some flavors of Linux also support this. So if you have your system set to dark mode or your system set to light mode, or if you're like me and when it's daytime and the sun's out, you want light mode. And when it's nighttime and the sun's down, you want dark mode. That's what I do. It's great that the website follows your system theme, because if all of your system is dark, but you suddenly go to a website that's light mode and it blows up your living room, but that website happens to have a dark mode, then it would have been nice if that website followed your OS settings. So this can't be a toggle switch because it's not on or off. It's actually one of three options.
Yeah.
So what I like about this, in addition to it providing the three options and defaulting to the OS settings, which is important, defaulting to the OS settings, I like this because it's a button. It's not a radio selection, but it's a button. And that's good because clicking on the button, if you're a sighted user with a mouse, it may not be a big deal. But if you're using a screen reader, the screen reader will say, this is a button. And when you click it, you expect it to immediately invoke an action, unlike form controls. So checkboxes, radio buttons, those are form actions or form controls. And all form inputs and form controls are meant for data entry, not for submission. So when a screen reader user is trying to manipulate form and do data entry, they should not expect it to immediately submit. But buttons can.
Agree. Like, and also we go back to the progressive enhancement story, right? Because you cannot submit a form without JavaScript if you change a radio button, but you can submit a form with a button. So if JavaScript is disabled or not loaded yet, you, with a button, will still have the possibility to change your theme, which is very cool, while you cannot do it with a radio button.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this one, I'm hovering the light toggle, and in HTML, it is a button, which is great. So if I click on light, that is a button. It does immediately invoke, and it does something to change your theme, whether that something is client-side JavaScript or an enhanced form action, which is really great. I think Untitled has a good video on that, where it's possible to have a form, submit your theme choice, have the server save your choice in a cookie, have the page server render the dark mode or the light mode, have no flash of style changes, like no rapid switch from light to dark or dark to light, because it's server rendered with your theme selection. That is ideal, but at the very least, have your toggle be a set of buttons.
Yep, absolutely.
I was wondering if anyone in the chat has experiences with this or opinions on other approaches to this. We'd like to hear it too. But I think the key takeaways are: 1, default to the OS setting that your users have; 2, save their settings, whether it's in local storage or a cookie; and 3, ideally, if you can, server render their option.
And also, I think another important aspect of, especially for the OS default, is try to use CSS, because you can access media query with JavaScript too, but obviously, like, you have to be smart about it, because you not only have to read the current default, the current media query, but you have to react to it. So with CSS, you get it for free. So use CSS whenever possible.
Oh, when you say use CSS, you're not referring to the action, are you? Or are you referring to something else?
I'm referring to like to, if you are using the OS default, try to style everything with CSS and the OS default, like the media query inside CSS, because some website, for example, use JavaScript to read the OS default and then apply that to the website. But the problem with these is that, like, they will not follow your, so if you change the media query, unless you like add an event listener to the media query, you will not get a new value back. So I think it's something that, like, exactly, you can use CSS and @media to actually style your website. And I think this is also a common pattern, right? So you can use CSS variable and use all of your CSS variable throughout your application. And with a simple media query in the root, you can change your variables depending on what the user preferred color scheme is.
Yeah, if you have the bandwidth to make such a robust theme switcher, that's right. As I agree with Paolo, using the media selector to change CSS variables is probably the most maintainable solution. That way your colors are sourced from variables, and then only the variables change when the user prefers a different color scheme. And this also goes hand in hand with high contrast mode. So a stretch goal is have your dark theme and your light theme support high contrast if possible, because some users want a dark theme. Some people want a dark theme with high contrast. Some people want a light theme or a light theme with high contrast. And if you happen to provide those things, also provide a toggle to manually switch them, much like language selection. Because if the website detects my browser language, but I want to switch to a different language like Italian, I should have the option, like I do here, to switch to that. What? No Italian?
I feel threatened.
Yeah, retain the user selection so that when they come back to the website, it remembers. And I think that's good enough for now.
Yes.
Thank you for discussion. And let's move on to questions and answers. And I think both of us have something prepared for today.
Yes.
I have one, and I'll get to it. The first one is, how do I resolve peer dependency issues? And this was motivated by SvelteKit 2. So in SvelteKit 2, I'm going to demonstrate what happens when you run the upgrade script and what issues you may face. Because when you upgrade from SvelteKit 1 for an existing project to SvelteKit 2, what you'll face is peer dependency conflicts when you run npm install. I'm going to use npm as my demonstration package manager, but I'm sure this problem may pervade in other package managers. So the demonstration I will use is one of my projects, and I just got to check out a commit that doesn't upgrade to SvelteKit 2. Git checkout head. There we go. So take a look at this. I'm going to do this demonstration all within my terminal. So this is my project, and in my project, I want to upgrade from SvelteKit 1 to SvelteKit 2. And according to the documentation, I need to run a script. So kit.svelte.dev. And then you got to go to the migrate to SvelteKit 2 documentation here. In the first paragraph, it says npx svelte migrate latest space SvelteKit-2. This will cache the svelte migrate package and run the SvelteKit 2 migration tool. I will paste that in my terminal and see what happens. So it's probably gonna, if it doesn't have it cached, yeah, if it doesn't have it cached, it will pull the latest changes. Yes, I want to proceed. Which folders? I just want to do the source folder. It's not a monorepo, so I'm glad it's asking me which directories need upgrading. I'm happy with the default. And what it'll do is it'll refactor several pages that are not SvelteKit 2 compatible. It'll install a few things, and more specifically, it will run git diff package.json. It made these changes for me. So in my package.json, it changed adapter node 1 to adapter node 2. It changed SvelteKit 1 to SvelteKit 2, and it installed a new package, Vite plugin Svelte, because Vite preprocess is now imported from a different package instead of SvelteKit. So this all makes sense. This is all correct. And what the migrate script does not do is run npm install for me. It does not make assumptions on which package manager I use. Maybe it could. Maybe this is a potential improvement. It can detect the lock file and decide, okay, you're using npm. It could do those things, but for now, it's manual. So now that I saw the git diff, I need to run npm install. And I will. And when that's done, I will run into conflicts. It says here, conflicting peer dependency, SvelteKit 206, and it has a peer of adapter node 2. And the reason why this is a conflict is because I currently have installed adapter node 131. This is an adapter node project, and this may seem like hard to recover from, but it's not. There is a solution, and it's advised right here in the error called you can retry with the force flag, which is not advisable to use on your day-to-day. The force flag will ignore peer dependencies. And just for the occasion, I will run the force flag because I do want to install these new packages because I'm almost certain they will resolve themselves. So that's the solution, npm install -- force. And after doing so, it'll say probably no vulnerabilities, everything's fine. And just to double check, I mean, it looks good. All developers like green text, right? Turning the red text into green, that's basically our job. I can also run npm install one more time. And at this point, if I don't see peer dependency errors, it means they're resolved. And that's your solution. Typically, you would not use the force flag. Typically, when you upgrade packages, the correct workflow is to run npm outdated or the outdated command in your respective package manager. You see what's outdated here, and then you would upgrade the breaking changes manually. So for example, my PayPal API is outdated, and version 8 is a breaking change. So the correct workflow could be npm install -d if it's a dev dependency, and then I would do @PayPal/PayPal-ds @latest. That's the correct workflow. You want to manually install the latest version, and usually the package manager will handle peer dependency conflicts. I guess the potential improvement for Svelte migrate could be asking you which package manager you use and proceeding to install it this way on your behalf instead of manually changing package.json. So at least you know how to recover from this error for now. And that's the end of the demo.
Thank you, Enrico.
So next up is Paolo.
Yes.
What do you got for us?
We have another question, which with hopefully an answer. So you may know, if you know Svelte, that you cannot use actions on components. This is that generally fine, but sometimes you may need to use an action on a component. And this is not a super easy task, especially if you want to please TypeScript. And the reason is because like the main thing would be to just like, if you're using JavaScript, you probably don't have much problems. If you're using TypeScript, however, you may want to like have a set of things. Like you want to have this action prop that you can then apply, but you may also want to like have proper IntelliSense for the parameters, because maybe you want to use the proper parameters, and also you may want to like not having to specify the parameters if the action does not specify a parameter. And I'm just realizing now that this is the wrong the wrong Svelte lab. Let me see if I have the other one ready. Otherwise, I can recover for this. So basically, like there is a bunch of stuff going on. Yes, okay, this is the correct one. I'm gonna refresh just for good reasons. To actually have these, you have to do some stuff. So in this case, I have two simple actions, right? I have a test action, which takes a string as a parameter. And if you try to use these on an actual button, for example, I can do use test. Svelte will hopefully yell at me. Yeah, it expects two arguments, but got one. And one argument is always the button itself. So you need to provide this kind of stuff to please TypeScript, basically. And I want kind of the same experience with my button component. So I want to pass an action, but I also want TypeScript to yell at me if I don't pass the action props. So by doing this, this is telling me that you need to pass action props. At the same time, if I don't have this, I don't want to pass an undefined. So if I'm using this other action, which is test2, you can see that button use test2. This, it's fine. And also, if I try to pass something, it will yell at me. And I want the same experience for my component. So if I try to pass test2, it will actually, hopefully, yell at me. No, it will not yell at me. That's one of the problems. But the fun part is that I don't have to pass action props. And also, like if I don't pass an action, I don't want TypeScript to yell at me because it wants action props. So all of those challenges were a TypeScript challenge, but I think I have a pretty good solution here. So what I did is I've used the action type that you can import from Svelte action. And then I use this generic syntax. So this button component is actually a generic component. And there is this T type, which comes from this generic from the script tag. And you can use this T type inside your component. So what I did is I used export let action to tell the component that needs to accept an action props. And this is typed as action, HTML button element. It can be HTML element generic, but given that I know that I use these on a button, I want it to be an HTML button element. And also this is the second type parameter, which represents the actual value of the props that you need to pass. And by default, this is just an empty action, so that like you don't have to pass an action. Now, the problem was that if I specified an action props prop with export let action props, I would have no way to actually have that props not be specified if T was undefined. And so what I did is I specified a type $$ props, which is another way to specify the type of your props. And here I check if undefined extend T, so that basically if undefined extend T, we just want the action as a action HTML button T. Otherwise, we want the action and we want the action prop T. This means that these action props is actually to access these action prop, I actually need to do it with REST props. And so here I can use action because I know that it will be defined if I want. I can just simply use action. And then I can pass the action props using the REST props. And in this case, I'm also like spreading all the rest of the REST props on the button so that this is technically just an HTML button, which I styled in a nice way. And to see it working, like the test action is very simple. I just store these tests inside this log variable. I can update the test every time, and on destroy I can remove the event listener, and I add an event listener with click that just console log. And to see it, we can actually use alert if we want. And so this means that like whenever I'm writing here, I'm passing these as an action prop. And so if I write hello this week in Svelte, and I click log, we should be getting hello this week in Svelte. And so this is again useful, for example, if you are using Melt UI, because Melt UI is all about actions. So if you have a custom button component and you want to pass an action from Melt UI, this is one way you can do it.
Wow, that's a lot of TypeScript ternary magic.
Yeah. I mean, I love to type juggle, but I mean, I get why some people get upset with TypeScript.
Does that mean the generics attribute in script is stable now?
I mean, I don't know if it's stable. Like, I know it's implemented. I don't think we have documentation yet on these. So I think it can change. But I think like if you see the RFC for the generics, it should be like there is an official RFC as Stalky is saying. So it's still an RFC, but it works for the moment.
Interesting. Yeah, mutually exclusive props is well, I'm not saying that that's what this is, but it's one of the challenges of making a component interface. And this is an interesting solution, doing like undefined extends generic type. I would not have thought of that.
I mean, this was a bit of work, like at least a couple of hours of works to figure out. And as you have seen, like I did other tests that did not work well. So in the end, I was kind of happy with my solution.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. And in the coming days, we will put all of these demonstrations in the YouTube description below.
Absolutely.
And that is all. Enjoy your holidays if you have any. And thank you for watching This Week in Svelte. Bye-bye.
See you probably next year. Have a good vacation. Have a good Svelte vacation.
See ya.